guys, welcome to the first episode of the Bitcoin Bunker. I'm your host, Satoshi Down Under, and I've been thinking about starting this YouTube channel a year ago, and hummed and hard about it for the whole year. Finally got my shed set up and decided, well, that'll be my New Year's resolution. Start documenting Bitcoin, try and help out the new guys a little bit to understanding why it's important, why all of us crazy Bitcoiners are so obsessed with this thing, and maybe get a few new people on board, or at least having a close look at it to decide for themselves if it's something they're interested in or if it's something that can improve their life. I don't think you can find a hardcore Bitcoiner out there that wouldn't say it's drastically improved their life. So bit of background about me. I'm from Australia, obviously, and first got exposed to Bitcoin in 2017, probably halfway through the year as all the altcoins and everything started running up. A few guys up on site where I was working started talking about this crypto thing, had no idea about it, saw them making ridiculous money and decided to jump in, which obviously is probably the biggest draw card for most people. They see it as an investment and they come in, they hear about Bitcoin, then ultimately they end up doing all the shit coins, which is exactly what I did. Made what was a decent chunk of money at the time and rode it up, kept refreshing the phone every 5 seconds to see where all the altcoins were at, and watched Bitcoin run up from $1,000 to 20,000 at the end of 2017. And thought, this is it, I'm going to retire, I'll quit work tomorrow. And then of course, anyone that's been in the space knows what happened. Everything went to shit, including Bitcoin, and we had a massive sell-off and a massive crash. But I guess I kept interested in it. I'd done some investing before, so I knew about dollar cost averaging, continuing to buy in every week. Did that. Largely it was with the shit coins, unfortunately, and not the Bitcoin. But was fortunate enough that by the next cycle, around 2020, a couple of those shit coins had redeemed themselves. So a close mate of mine and I started talking on the phone again, started getting excited, still shit coining, still hadn't learnt our lesson, still hadn't studied Bitcoin. Basically went through the same thing again, watched everything ride up, watched the portfolio swell, watched it crash again, started studying a bit more, and then became fully convicted Bitcoiner. I read the Bitcoin Standard by Saif Dean Amos and a few other books, and then really started deep diving into Bitcoin and discovered, two goes around with the altcoins. Different names, different coins, same scam. And I think that's what probably keeps a lot of people away from Bitcoin, if I'm perfectly honest. They come in wanting to get rich quick, they get distracted by all the shitcoinery, and then they walk away thinking Bitcoin itself is a scam, which is a real shame. So I guess long-winded way of saying, with a bit of my background, that I've been in the space for the wrong reasons, and now I think for the right reasons, for going on 8 years now. And I want to share some of my insights, hopefully to fast track you guys that are interested in cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin. And I'm just going to try and hopefully steer you towards Bitcoin being the source of truth, so that you can avoid all of the costly mistakes that I made, and basically learn from my mistakes and hopefully get a deeper understanding of Bitcoin and why it can help us, humanity as a whole, and why it can help us fight the corrupt fiat money system, which is basically what it is. So that's going to be the channel. Probably going to have 5 subscribers to start off with, so welcome guys, great to have you here. And the audio will get better. The lighting setup's just whatever, man. I'm in the bunker. this is the channel plus doing up my old BMW. So we'll see how the lighting goes, see how the audio goes. I've got a mic here, but I can't find a cable for it. So hopefully this video turns out half decent and I'll upload it. And obviously I've done that. You're watching now, so thanks. So I've got the price up here. We'll have a quick discussion about price because everyone likes price. To be honest, 2025 was pretty lackluster. I mean, 24 was great, 23 was great. You know, when I say lackluster, if you were buying in 2023, you're sitting on extremely good gains. But all of us Bitcoiners, we just get adjusted to where a price is at and we kind of go, oh, what, it's crashed 30%. So if you'd bought at the bottom, which no one ever does unless you dollar cost average and you just buy every payday or every month or something like that, which is what I recommend. But you know, if you bought some here in the low of 2022, you're now up 500%. So I'm not going to be one of these channels which is pissing and moaning about the news, getting involved in the fights about, you know, Bitcoin's going to zero and all of that shit. I'm just basically here going to try and explain Bitcoin in simple terms and try and get you guys to zoom out and understand that no Bitcoiner that has held for 4 or 5 years is underwater. And that's pretty significant as far as an investment goes. Now, I think Bitcoin's far more than an investment, which we'll dive into in future episodes. But even if looking at Bitcoin from a purely investment angle, you know, you pretty much have outperformed everybody. So we've had this recent sell-off, you know, like I said, 2025 marked mostly sideways chop. We did hit all-time highs, 126K or something like that. But, you know, we have come down 30%. We've had a 30% drop off. Which in the scheme of things is nothing when you zoom out and have a good look. One thing I will mention is the Goldbugs are out there with their pitchforks, Peter Schiff telling us that we're wrong, that we should have invested in gold. So obviously if you're into investing, which some of you might be completely fresh and you've stumbled across this Bitcoin channel. But Bitcoin has severely underperformed this year compared to gold. However, this chart here, well, let me show you the gold chart first. So gold in USD has been on an absolute tear since 2023, as we can see. Right, so all the gold bugs are right this year. They've done 145% since October 2023. Let's jump back to the Bitcoin chart. Find October 2023. Because we need some perspective here, right? October 2023. Even with the latest sell-off and the sideways chop year of 2025, Bitcoiners are still at around 250%. Compared to the gold bugs of 145. So don't listen to the FUD from the gold bugs. Gold's had an insane rally, yes. But when we zoom out, these guys have been waiting a decade for this, right? It's actually laughable. 2020 through to 2023, I'd say the beginning of 24, sideways chop. Range bound gold. These guys have waited a decade. Peter Schiff's been waiting a decade to start getting on Twitter or X and boasting about how he's outperforming Bitcoin. Absolutely laughable. Now, this chart here will show you gold against Bitcoin. So to explain that, whenever you see the chart going up, it means gold is going up higher relative to Bitcoin. And whenever it's going down, it means that Bitcoin is outpacing gold. So here's our little rally Peter Schiff's suffering in his jocks, getting all excited about. He's up 75% against Bitcoin this year. Well done, Pete. But when we zoom out, have a look at what gold's doing. Gold has done nothing but crash in Bitcoin terms since 2015. So do we think this little pump here, similar to this pump that we had here in gold outperforming Bitcoin, is anything to worry about? I dare say that Bitcoin is having a delayed run. I don't think we're in a bear market yet. And I think that this chart will roll over. And soon enough, Bitcoin will start outpacing gold. But, I mean, that's a little side note. Who cares? We don't really care about the gold guys. It's just a little debate that goes on X. They're good guys. They invest in hard money. That's what we're trying to do. Investing in Bitcoin is investing in sound money. And the gold guys are doing exactly the same thing. They know that the fiat system is a Ponzi scheme where the Fed and central banks can print money out of thin air. So they're on the right track. I'd say all gold bugs are Bitcoiners that just haven't discovered Bitcoin yet or haven't dived down the rabbit hole enough. So enough about charts. That was just a little bit of a starter. But what I really wanted to talk about now is the Bitcoin halving. So one of my personal frustrations, having gone down the rabbit hole over 8 years, finally learning about Bitcoin, taking a long time to really understand the difference between Bitcoin and all of the shitcoins out there. Now explaining it to my friends and family and having them think it's a scam, think it's bad for the environment, think it's going to zero, all of these other things, and not really understanding what's going on with Bitcoin. Why does it keep going up? I want to kind of spend each episode just discussing a few of the properties of Bitcoin, what makes it different from all the altcoins, what makes it better than the fiat Ponzi scheme, fiat currency that we all use, and what makes it better than gold. Some of the fundamental things with Bitcoin that my friends have found hard to understand is around this Bitcoin halving thing. So most people have heard, okay, Bitcoin, there's only 21 million of them ever going to be in existence, ever going to be mined. So typically people have heard Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin halving. They might know that it's hard capped at 21 million coins, but they kind of don't really know anything else. And then when you dig deeper, they don't understand the halving either. So I'll talk about mining in another video, but basically miners, which are specific computers trying to solve an algorithm, cryptography hashing algorithm, they're all competing to secure the next block. Now, a block gets added every 10 minutes to the blockchain, which is another thing that people have heard. Oh, blockchain technology, it's this amazing thing. Well, not really. It's just a database. And it's stacking these blocks of transactions on top of each other in an immutable ledger, which can't be tampered with, reversed, or changed. And it stacks them on top of each other every 10 minutes, forming a chain, right? That's all the blockchain is. So what the miners do is they try to solve a puzzle. Let's call it a puzzle because it's just the easiest way to explain it. They're all competing using electricity to run these machines to try and solve this hashing algorithm, this puzzle. The reason they're doing that is because if they secure that 10-minute block of transactions, they get the block subsidy or the reward, which in 2009 was 50 Bitcoin. So all the halving is every 200,000 blocks, or roughly 4 years, the algorithm in the Bitcoin code says, okay, we've mined this many blocks, now it's time to halve the supply that gets issued as a reward every 10-minute block. So 2009 Genesis block was January 3, 2009. So I've missed that by a couple of days. I really should have started the channel then. But anyway, so for 4 years, 50 Bitcoin given out every 10 minutes. to the successful miner. Halving occurs 2012, the first halving. That issuance becomes 25 Bitcoin. That lasts for 4 years. 2016, halved again to 12.5 Bitcoin as the reward. 6.25, another 4 years later, 3.125, which we're currently in now. And then obviously it's 1.5, blah, 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 whatever. And then that will continue. So every 4 years, I think people get confused with this halving. All that's happening is the issuance of the 21 million coins that are ever going to exist gets halved every 4 years, right? So the last piece of Bitcoin that will ever be mined will be in the year 2140, right? Because it's going to halve again. So 2140, there'll be like this tiny fraction of Bitcoin that gets mined. So what happens when all of it gets mined? Well, I'll be dead, you'll be dead, but maybe our grandkids will be alive, right? So we want to know that these miners are still going to keep mining because there's nothing left to mine. Like, you shut a gold mine down when there's no gold left, right? But the key here is, on top of the Bitcoin subsidy, the 25 Bitcoin, or currently the 3.125 Bitcoin reward that they also get any fees that were paid in that block of transactions, right? So you have to imagine that over time, as Bitcoin adoption grows, which it has already in its 16 years of existence, there'll be more people using the network, right? So there'll be more block space used up, and there'll be more fees being paid. So the premise is, even though the Bitcoin will have all been mined in 2140, if global adoption is massive, which I think by then everyone's going to be using it, like even the normies that live next door to you will have transitioned to Bitcoin because they will have like had their currency hyperinflated away. They'll be looking for something, right? So if 8 billion, 9 billion people are on a Bitcoin standard, and they won't even call it that because it's just money, right? This is what we're using now. No one will know any of this history right now. No one will even look at this video and go, well, you know, those guys were like at the beginning of this thing. But the point is, these guys will still be mining because they'll still receive a reward in transaction fees. And it will offset the electricity costs that go into mining. So before I finish the video, I just want to show you where you can find something about that. So you can look at each of these blocks. So this website's called mempool.space. It's just a block explorer, so you can basically chuck in any block number that you want and it'll go back to that exact block. It'll tell you which mining company or individual miner received the reward, and it will tell you how many Bitcoin they received and what fees they received. So if we go to this block here, just pick a random one, we can see here that the total fees that this miner got was $3,084, and the Bitcoin they got would have been 3.125. So their total that they received for winning this block was just under 300k. Now, over time, we know this Bitcoin reward will now shrink, but with adoption growing, the fee base will go up, making it viable still to support the network by running the miners. So check out that website, it's pretty cool. Basically, quick rundown, everything left of this dotted line, dashed line, is blocks waiting to happen, and these are blocks that have happened. So these blocks are added to the blockchain, and what's really cool is once you dive into Bitcoin and start exploring it a bit more, and you transfer some Bitcoin from your exchange to, let's say, your hardware wallet, which we'll talk about in a future episode, you can actually check where your block is sitting, and you can actually sit here and watch it jump over to be added to the Bitcoin blockchain. And this is an immutable ledger, right? So once it's added, there's no reversing it. It's set in stone, and all the other blocks that go above that embed that in there. So This isn't like your banking system. Oh, I made a boo-boo, or reversed the charges, or oh, I got scammed. Like, Bitcoin's all about personal responsibility, right? Which you'll learn throughout these episodes. So it seems scary at first, but this is what humanity needs, right? We look at the world now, full of scams, full of corruption. Politicians are corrupt, business people are corrupt, bankers are just out there robbing everyone for fees, central banks are printing money out of thin air. So we need an immutable ledger. We need something that can be set in stone and basically is out of the hands of corruptible humans, a system that is decentralized like Bitcoin, that can't be corrupted and can't be changed and altered by those who have the most wealth or power, right? So we'll get into more of that stuff in a future episode. It's a bit heavy probably for the start, but I just wanted to discuss the halving because that is one of the beginning challenges people have. They don't understand that. They don't understand there's only 21 million coins. We'll go into more mining in future and running nodes and why Bitcoin's important. We'll go into discovering what money really is, because I don't think a lot of people actually understand what money is. You know, we spend our whole lives out there working for it, but no one's really ever questioned where does it come from, who creates it. If another man can create it out of nothing, a few strokes of a pen or a keyboard, yet we all have to go out and slave away for it. How is that a fair world? So we'll discuss all the topics of what is money. And yeah, I'm just going to try and take kind of a beginner's take, because I feel like there's a lot of really quality YouTubers out there. The Simply Bitcoin guys are great for covering the news and stuff. I don't really want to cover the news. You know, X is full of all that sort of stuff, full of news, full of, you know, drama. Then you've got other guys that are a bit too technical. They're so far ahead along the journey, I guess, because they've been running their channels for so long that they don't really ever consider the new guys, or the Bitcoin noobs, I guess, that are just coming into the space or maybe curious about the space. So it can seem overwhelming for a lot of people discussing Bitcoin, and I think a lot of people feel they've missed the boat, so they just write it off. But most Bitcoiners' belief is that this thing is the future and it's something worth paying attention to. So hope you enjoyed that little tutorial and the first episode, and I'll be back with more, and I hope you tune in and subscribe.